must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military industrial complex.
What's up? First episode of 2016. I'm Ricky Vrand. This is the Ripple Effect Podcast. Thanks a lot, everybody. I really appreciate everybody who's been sticking with the show. From the bottom of my heart, thanks. Thanks for going back in the archives and listening to the old shows. I really appreciate it. Roger Stone has been on the show before, who's our guest today, so you can go back and listen to that one. He was on to talk about his book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. He's here this time to talk about his new Clinton book, Clinton's War on Women, and basically the history of the Clintons. And I'm sure a lot of my listeners, I have a lot of smart listeners, I'm sure they're familiar with some of the history of the Clintons, but if it's fresh to you, if you're not familiar with his link to the drug trafficking and the Iran-Contras and Arkansas and all that stuff, it's going to be a very interesting show. Roger Stone has been in politics for years and years and years. He's worked for, well, don't take that wrong way. I'm not trying to call Roger old, but he's been around. He's worked for Nixon. He's worked for Reagan. He's worked for the Bushes. He's worked for Trump recently, and I believe also years ago he worked for Trump as a lobbyist in behalf of his casino business. So he's been in the inside. He really knows how politics works. He knows these people. He's been at parties with these people. He's been in conversations with these people. So he's really an insider. He's not just a researcher from the outside looking in, and that's what makes him so interesting. And I think his timing for this book is really important. I think the worst thing that could happen in this country is having another Bush or Clinton in office. I think our options suck, but really anything but that, please. With all the great minds and thinkers and interesting people we have in this country, it just sucks that even before anybody started running or campaigning, people were already talking about Bush and Clinton on the ballot, and I think that's sad. I think that we can do much better than that, and I hope people listening, young people, older people, we will stop voting for the same two parties, the same people, and we need to get a third party involved. We need worst case scenario, we get, somebody like Sanders, who's been obviously, his foreign policy is very questionable, and when he gets in office, I'm not sure much is going to change when it comes down to that. But I think it's refreshing to hear a Sanders, to hear a Trump, to hear somebody who's not just the same cookie cutter type of politician as the other ones who are just saying the same things. And look at your other options. You have Jeff Bush and Hillary, who are known liars. Hillary has flip-flopped on the Iraq War. She's flip-flopped on, she's in bed with Wall Street. It's quite obvious that she will lie to, you look at Benghazi, which I think the Republicans are just, it's ridiculous that they're obviously doing it for a political reason, and they're not actually getting to the root of that problem, and the fact that they're actually using Benghazi to funnel weapons to the Syrian rebels. But they don't want to go that far. They want to expose anybody or expose a bigger plan. I think they just want to politically harm Hillary, which is just a selfish reason and really not getting to the bottom of it. But yeah, so Roger's been around for a long time. He's been a lobbyist. He's been a political consultant. He's been a best-selling author with his book on the JFK assassination. And he also has another book coming out about the Bush family. So enjoy the show. I truly appreciate everybody who's been listening. We get into a lot of different things. We don't talk about everything. We ran out of a little bit of time. We had some issues with the Skype connection for some reason. We tried for almost an hour I tried calling him, he tried calling me. We couldn't figure out what was going on, what was causing a lack of strength in our signal, what was causing sometimes us to hear each other but not see each other, and sometimes see each other not hear each other. So we don't know what was going on. Then eventually I just ended up calling his cell phone and making it work that way. So the quality could be better, but definitely think it's tolerable. I mean, I had people on like Jesse Ventura and Rick Ross and people like that who, and Eddie Bravo, who I use a landline or a cell phone call with, and it worked out pretty well. So it was, well, I didn't get any complaints, so I'm assuming it worked out pretty well and people could listen to it. So thanks again, guys. I really, really appreciate it. Also, remember to review this podcast. Remember to share this podcast. It's really important you guys do that. And anybody who does, I have a bunch of Ripple Effect podcast bumper stickers. So if anybody sends me a screenshot of a rating, if you guys just go out of your way and rate it, and then just send me a picture of it, to rvtheory6@aol.com. Yes, I'm still using AOL.com. Sorry, guys. And if you guys can do that, then I will send you a bumper sticker. Just give me your address. I'll send you that. And maybe if I have some Theory 6 CDs, I'll send you one of those too. So thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it. And I think that's it for now. I have a bunch of guests on their way. Work has slowed down, so you'll be seeing or hearing more shows coming very soon. I have a bunch of guests that I'm just working on scheduling times and dates, and hopefully they'll be out soon. So hopefully this will be the beginning of a very busy couple months, and a lot of awesome guests and shows on their way. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, let's do it. Yeah. First things first. What are you drinking?
I just poured myself a Cheetos martini, very dry. Now, I must say this is abnormally early in the day for me to begin drinking, but we were looking to create a certain mood for the shot, and I also felt like a drink. So it was, and very, very dry. With an olive. As you know, I was a protege of Richard Nixon, who taught me kind of politics at his knee, and he was a man who liked his martinis. And he made a very mean martini that he was quite proud of. So you would go to his home in Saddle River, New Jersey, and he would say, "Hey, what about a silver bullet?" And soon learned that he meant vodka martini. So he would, in a special recipe that he used, where he would, take a cocktail shaker, a lot of ice, put in the vodka, go to the refrigerator where it had a jar of olives. He drained the juice and kind of marinated them in vermouth. He took one and put it in each glass, and that was it. They were spectacular. I said, "Well, Mr. President, that's a great recipe." He said, "Yes, I got it from Winston Churchill."
Wow. Well, being a big cigar smoker and whiskey drinker, I'm always kind of curious what people drink and what people smoke. I've actually done a full podcast just on cigars with a beautiful woman called Delicia, the Cigar Vixen. And it's always intriguing to me. It's something I absolutely enjoy, is this idea of just sitting back, having a cocktail, and just having conversations and sharing ideas and what's on your mind and stuff like that. And I definitely think,
well, as you probably know, John F. Kennedy was a great cigar smoker.
Yeah,
he liked to contemplate democracy and the fight for freedom over Cuban cigars, illegal Cuban cigars. General Grant chewed 6 cigars a day when he was general of the Union armies. Didn't so much smoke them as chew them. As he was having people killed. So it is, there's a tradition of elegance there. So, as you probably know, I just had my 10th annual International Best and Worst Dressed list. Mr. Stone's International 10 Best and Worst, or just not 10, but 10th anniversary, pardon me, Best and Worst Dressed list, which is, we got a nice pickup in the New York Post, and as it usually does in some of the fashion columns. This is an old tradition that we took from a guy named Mr. Blackwell. For those who were too young to remember, Blackwell was like this flamboyant designer from Hollywood in the early days of television and radio and the tabloids, who was an arbiter of style. And he would publish this withering list, and he could make you or break you in society and sports and Hollywood. He could really... And he was very well covered. He had a huge international or national radio hookup. He had a radio program, and he had a print column, and he was very influential. So anyway, when he died, I decided that this was too great a tradition to just let it die with him. He was Mr. Blackwell, I'm Mr. Stone. And I started this. So this is my 10th year. I mean, people have fallen on and off. There are the old standbys. Kanye West always will be on the worst dressed list. I mean, this guy's a designer, and he is, and his stuff looks like it's made, they're like sweaters with holes in it. It looks like someone who is unfortunately homeless would wear. That's not fashion. I mean, pretending to have threadbare clothing is, I don't know, there's something weird about that. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
I think there's something, that's a problem with anything that's artistic.
Yes.
It's so subjective. And then you get these people who try really hard to be different or be unusual or to stick out. And then it can either be looked at as, oh, wow, that's, very artistic and maybe I just don't get it. Or sometimes it really is just ugly and it's just somebody's poor attempt of trying to be artistic. And I think that happens quite a bit too. And I think with Kanye, that's definitely what he's trying to do. I think he does it with his music. I think he does it with his ego. I think he's constantly trying to convince people he has these great ideas and his thinking is far beyond everybody else's. And we need to come up to his level. And I don't know.
He's been talking about he'll have to run for president. That's not happening.
Yeah, that's silly. Yeah, I don't know.
It's just not happening. He is not Dr. King. He is not, he's just a punk.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. But that's awesome to keep up that tradition. And I think there is something about looking good. You feel good when you look good, and I think there's this mind-body connection where if your mind feels good, your body feels good, and if your body looks and feels good.
I mean, I try to be politically objective. Let's take Huma Abedin, the right-hand woman of Hillary Clinton. Very chic, very sophisticated, always looks great, of the moment dresser. And I got to tell you, she is. It doesn't matter whether she is in a UN cocktail party or whether she's at a Muslim Brotherhood cell meeting. She always looks chic. She is, she could really give dressing advice to Hillary, who unfortunately for the second year in a row lands on our worst dressed. She once wore a coat that looked like material from a sofa. She wore a brown kind of sackcloth colored pantsuit in a debate, brown on television, just giant mistake. What brown is the same color as. It's just it's a giant mistake. So she has a well-deserved place, not having any understanding of what looks good on her. We would only hope that Huma would give her some good advice.
Now, this is a great starting point let's get right into the history of the Clintons. I think what you're doing is awesome. I think that the timing's perfect. I think sparking this conversation, I think there's something about history where when it's the further we are from it, it becomes more black and white, and then people have this very...
Look, this is very simple. Hillary Clinton is running for president on the premise that she is an advocate for women and girls. When if one looks at her personal conduct, the presidential years and outside the presidential years, she has acted against the interests of women and girls. Not only their tenure at the State Department, where her policies have been very harmful to women and girls in the Middle Eastern region, or in the fact that in all of Bill's sex crimes, it's a dirty word, but the assaults, the rapes, the unwanted attentions, but the physical sexual assaults of women. They're too numerous and too specific for there to be nothing to them. Clinton paid an $850,000 settlement to Paula Jones. It's like Cosby. There's too much smoke. Now, the point, of course, is that Hillary is not just an enabler, although Trump is right. She's an accessory after the fact. She's an accomplice. She, in all of these sex crimes, she is the one who discredits and then tries to destroy the women who come forward and who uses the heavy-handed private detectives to terrify these women into not testifying when they get a subpoena. In some cases, other guys stop from going public and talking to reporters. These are terror tactics. Pets killed, tires slashed, late-night phone calls, threats against their children, and it's too uniform. One of these private investigators bragged about how he had saved Hillary's ass with these tactics and stopped, in this case, Kathleen Willey from coming forward. She ultimately does come forward. Many of these women, said things early on in this controversy that because they were petrified. The Clintons had a very bad reputation. In any event, as you saw, the mainstream media is not anxious to talk about this. When Hillary attacked Trump on the gender card, when she played the gender card and called him a sexist, in essence, Trump was quick to fire back that it was, her husband was a sexist, and then he nailed her as an enabler. But it's even more than that. But this book, therefore, became really relevant. The Clintons' war against women. The issue came up because I thought Ben Carson in the debate last night was handed a giant softball. He could have made a national story by holding the Clintons accountable and saying, yes, if Bill assaulted people and Hillary covered it up, that is relevant in this campaign. Trump would have knocked this out of the park. It was very, to me, Ben Carson is like Chauncey Gardner in the movie Being There. He's kind of a nice guy stumbling through life. He seems like a decent fellow, but he just doesn't have a clue, and he's not able to sound authoritarian or tough. But when he does, I don't know. He just seems to be stumbling through it.
Yeah, and talking about Huma, I know you've also talked about the, I guess, for lack of a better word, weird relationship between Hillary and Huma.
Well, this has many. This has many levels. Let me say, first of all, it's odd to me that Huma Abedin's mothers and brothers are all active and promoters of the Muslim Brotherhood. That she went to school where she edited a journal that was funded by the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, a radical journal. That she would be in the State Department with those connections, with any kind of security clearance, bogs the line, because it means that she has seen all the top secret and classified documents, many of which probably have to do with the war on terror, in Hillary's now, sanitized email. So you have that conflict of interest. She's the only woman, Huma Abedin, who of course is the wife of the philandering, perverted congressman from Brooklyn, Anthony Weiner. So I prefer to call Huma Mrs. Carlos Danger. She is on the payroll of Teneo, which is a Clinton-connected lobbying operation that represents governments doing business for Hillary's State Department. Another conflict of interest. At the same time, she's triple dipping. She's getting a check at the Clinton Foundation. Now, the Clinton Foundation is the heart of many of these emails that disappeared have to do with the nexus between the State Department and the Clinton Foundation, meaning pay to play. Those documents would essentially show the pay to play. Harry Smith's contribution for $2.5 million received, proceed on his project to drain water from the swamp, whatever it may be. That's why I think these emails have been erased. It is nothing, of course. The very best IT people on the investigative side assure me nothing can really be erased in cyber world, nothing. And they believe that these things could be recovered if the government knows what they're doing, which we assume they do, but these tech monkeys, speak at a level that is above my comprehension. I'm a technological Luddite, but I do know how email works. Anyway.
Yeah, and also another thing that people I think tend to forget was a recording that came out years ago about Hillary talking about a rape case that she was involved in when she was
this shows what hypocrisy there is here. Hillary represented a man who was accused of raping a 12-year-old girl. Hillary admitted that he was guilty, and laughed about the fact that he had, however, passed a lie detector. That he passed a lie detector test, but that destroyed her faith in lie detector tests because she knew for a fact that he was guilty, that he had done it, and she was heard on tape laughing about this. Now, she brutalized this 12-year-old girl on cross-examination on the stand. I mean, she kicked the daylights out of her. It was really vicious. This is the poor woman. You talk about bullying women. Go, read this.
Yeah, so, and she's also, and since then, that poor girl, she's actually been in and out of jail, in and out of rehabs, and her life's been, and I'm not saying that it was directly linked to that, but obviously, she has a tough enough life, and it's even worse knowing that somebody who raped her probably should have been in jail and wasn't, and that tape of her kind of giggling about it was kind of disturbing. And well, but that woman may have a voice in October. You might hear those tapes in radio spots next October. You just could. Well, that's there's going to be a citizen. There's going to be, as I understand, a number of women who are victims of Bill Clinton are banding together to tell their story to the American people. That they're going to be touring, they're going to be speaking, they're going to be in television and radio ads. The money to do this is being raised, I am told, but I know that Kathleen Willey, who was a Virginia Democrat, very beautiful woman, inside and out, a very decent person, was physically assaulted by Bill Clinton in the Oval Office when she visited him to ask for a job. This is the time she was working as a volunteer in the social office. The head of the social office at this time, by the way, totally remembering the day, bolsters her claim that she was assaulted. He remembers the day very specifically and how distraught she was when she left the office. So he is a new important witness. And of course you have Juanita Broderick, brutally bitten by Bill Clinton. He bites the upper lip of his victims. That's a signature move. It's a disabling move that rapists use. A woman, of course, who has a bleeding face, takes her hands away from her genitals and puts them over her face. Very classic rapist move. Clinton has, interestingly enough, as I wrote for the Daily Caller, with the legendary Robert Morrow, an investigator, libertarian firebrand from Austin, Texas, who's one of the best deep researchers in the country. Eccentric fellow. I cannot tell you I agree with all of his views, but a very fine researcher. And has provided me with a lot of good material for my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. I must tell you, this past Christmas, the sale of that book as a Christmas present in softcover was gratifying to Mr. and Mrs. Stone, because of course I get a nice dividend check, which Uncle Sam usually gets the greatest portion of. But hey, that's America. Yeah, I was a huge fan of that book, and I'm glad I had you on before to talk about it, and I recommend it.
No, and that is why I was disappointed when, for technical reasons, we had to delay this connection because I remember our last chat and I had really very good vibe on it. A lot of people downloaded it and loved it that were friends of mine. So I was anxious to get together again with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I mean, one, you've been in the White House, you've been in the belly of the beast, you've been an insider for a lack of other word. You've been a political consultant, you've been a lobbyist. So, I mean, you really know how the political game's played. Well,
I spent 40 years in the corroded rectum of the two-party system. I was conservative when conservative wasn't cool. I learned politics at the knee of Richard Milhouse Nixon. I first got the bug about liberty, and because I'm a libertarian Republican, I first got the bug about the libertarian and the freedom view, the liberty view of American politics is by my early admiration for Barry Goldwater. Goldwater was doomed as a politician, but he was a great man when it came to his belief in America and that only peace through strength could prevent war, and government should be small and unobtrusive and out of people's private lives. That's my brand of conservatism, out of the bedroom, out of the boardroom. Don't tell people what they can smoke, what they can eat, who they can love, who they can marry. Keep our taxes low. Unfortunately, that school of Republicans has disappeared in the Republican Party. This, unfortunately, and I say this with great sentimentalness, because I was the young Republican national chairman. I grew up, as a Goldwater acolyte who became a protege of Nixon. I worked for the greatest president probably in my lifetime, Ronald Reagan, through 3 presidential campaigns, and got to travel and with him extensively, and honed my skills as a political strategist, working on Catholics and blue collars in the northeastern states, which was kind of my trademark political experience.
Yeah, and I think that the timing of your book is perfect. I think the fact that you're coming out with a book about the Bushes and Jeb Bush is important because I think it shows that you're willing to expose people, not just people in the Democratic Party or...
No, this is not a partisan hit. And for those who say Stone, you're right. For those who say Stone is a partisan Republican hitman, which I have been, at the moment I'm a registered libertarian. Now, I cannot tell you that, like Teddy Roosevelt, who left the GOP and came back, like Ron Paul, who left the GOP and came back, that I might not rejoin the party of Lincoln. If there's a vibrant liberty wing, I probably would have switched to vote for Donald Trump, but unfortunately, I waited too late. I could change now, but that would not make me eligible to vote in the Florida primary. It has to be a full year when switching from party to party. That way you avoid, ballot fraud, which massive number of party switchers at the last minute bolt into a party illegally and steal it in the primary.
Yeah, I think that whole thing is ridiculous. That the hoops they make you go through. I'm kind of I'm similar.
Well, that's for the protection of the integrity of the party. It really does make it hard to hijack. You'd have to go a year ago, and you'd have to switch all those people over. So I'll be able to vote in the Republican primaries the following year. I understand the mechanism. I understand the point of it. In any event, it's interesting though that there is, I'm told, for example, a real upsurge in registrations of Democrats wanting to vote for Trump in the New Hampshire Republican primary, and in Iowa, a phenomena that the clerks are reporting to me.
Well, I think one thing people like about Trump, and similar to yourself, I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but I think the one thing people actually like about him is that people are sick of the same cookie cutter, same type of looking, same type of sounding politician. And I think the reason why Sanders and Trump is doing well, Sanders probably doesn't have a shot because they obviously keep rigging the debates in the favor of Hillary. I mean, they have the debates this weekend, the beginning of playoffs for that.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sorry, go ahead. You heard all that.
Yeah, no problem.
You can see what kind of day we're having out there as truth tellers.
What's that?
where you can see us out there as truth tellers.
Yeah, and I think
anyway, Ricky, let's go ahead.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Sanders and Trump is that people are sick of the same cookie cutter, same type of sounding and same type of looking type of politician.
Yeah, no. Trump had two moments last night that were just stellar. Trump is always articulate, but he's rarely eloquent. Last night on the subject of New York, the grit of New Yorkers, and the respect that America owes, the world owes New York for the way they healed, it was the home run of the evening. He owned Cruz in that moment, and any ground he lost in the previous exchange over the Canadian thing, which I still think is net plus trauma. Just get anyone just getting anyone to look at that issue. Ricky, it's not settled law. He's right. It's just not settled law. There is some dispute. It has never been to court. The Constitution nowhere does it define what natural born means. It is more than just the citizenship of your parents. It is the question of your country of origin, where you were, what soil you're on. For Ted Cruz to attack Trump's mother, knowing that she was naturalized and that Trump was born in the USA, was a Nixonian type jab that was totally confection, as it were. It really was a cheap shot. There's no controversy about Trump's Scottish mother. Really worthy of a young Dick Nixon. That was a slashing attack. But Trump so owned the New York moment, it really didn't end up mattering. Carson was handed the softball of the evening. Carson could have knocked it out of the stud and binned the news. All he had to do was raise the question of Bill Clinton's sexual assault and Hillary's role in concealing them. And the strong arm tactics and lies and deceptions they have used to keep these women who he has forced himself on in many occasions silent.
Yeah, I mean,
huge mistake by Carson. Puts the softball of the century and doesn't pick it up.
I think what the point that Trump made was kind of important. I mean, I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent thinker, and I don't like to join either party. But I agree with him if you are a Republican, and even if there's even a little bit of doubt that Cruz could possibly get harassed for this birther debate later against Hillary. If you're a Republican, that's something you have to at least consider. This idea that, well, what if he is the candidate, and then Hillary uses that against him, so I can kind of see his perspective.
I think he's got a very strong point of view on it.
And but back to the Clintons, I think what I was saying before about how the further we are from history, the more it seems black and white, and it seems like there's good guys and bad guys, and everything else gets blurry. And I think Clinton's kind of the same thing. If you talk about Clinton with anybody, people always talk about how good the economy was and all these positive things. Nobody talks about NAFTA. Nobody talks about the WTO, the World Trade Organization.
Actually, I just don't think that's true. The National Enquirer, for example, which is sadly but bravely one of the few outlets that have broken news on the Clintons, also the Globe, much of their reporting, 99.9%, is daily accurate. Sometimes their sources get things slightly wrong, but whenever the Clinton foibles are on the cover, they sell an extra 1 million copies that week. 1 million across the country. For a total of 7 million readers. The Globe, the Enquirer, 4 and 5 million readers. So people want to know the real story here, and if your central campaign is pitched around the idea that you are an advocate for women and girls, and you aren't, you're an abuser of women and girls, that you have your policies as Secretary of State have destroyed the rights of women and girls and the interests of women and girls and children in the region in the Middle East, particularly slavery, stonings. And the fact that she's being allowed to grift through all kinds of scams and what is probably the largest organized crime conspiracy to steal, to profiteer of all time, the Clinton Foundation, which is not a charity, but a slush fund for grifters.
Yeah, and a
vehicle for the facilitation of multi-million-dollar bribes. This is why the emails have been destroyed, of course, because they would show the nexus between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department, and the pay-to-play nature of what is happening there.
If you go back in history, it's amazing how many women have talked about having sexual relationships with the Clintons. There's two great documentaries, one called the Mina Connection and another one called the Clinton Chronicles, which have testimony of state police, security, people talking about them lying for Bill, them protecting the room that he's in with a woman, or helping him pick out women or whatever. I mean, there's story after story of this. I mean, this isn't...
Well, to be honest with you, and this is in the accreditations, I combed that entire film. I had much of it reduced to transcripts, and much of it is in my book. Stunning proof of judicial abuse. A woman who makes a mistake of doing coke with Bill Clinton and having a little fun, when they are afraid of what she's seen, they basically send her to jail for 30 years to silence her and keep her away from reporters. A perfect example. The fact that Jennifer Flowers' next door neighbor, Gary Johnson, was unlucky enough to have a video camera that proves that Clinton was lying on 60 Minutes when he said he'd only been with Jennifer one time. He had a video that showed Bill coming and going with his own key on many occasions to see his consensual mistress. So one evening, 3 burly Arkansas State troopers showed up and beat him so badly that they left him for dead, assuming he was dead. That's how badly they beat him, crushing his nasal passages, puncturing his organs, lacerating his liver, his kidney, his lungs, dislocating both of his elbows and shoulders, breaking his collarbones. It was that brutal a beating. He has never recovered physically or psychologically from this, and these are clearly, the neighbors told us that they could hear people, men yelling, where are the fucking tapes? Where are the tapes?
And also another thing that you talk about in your book is, and I'm not trying not to sound like Jerry Springer, but who is Chelsea's father? And
yes.
Also, I know you looked into that. You looked into mixed race boys.
Yeah, and I think this is the most significant thing. Look, Hillary says Black Lives Matter, but they don't matter for Danny Williams. Danny Williams, D-A-N-N-E-Y, Danny Williams, look him up right now on Twitter, is the abandoned, rejected, mixed-race son of Bill Clinton. He is handsome. He is 30. He has 5 children of his own. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He has his own small business, put himself through college. He struggles to put food on the table. He is the biological son of Bill Clinton and Bobby Ann Williams, a black cocaine-addicted prostitute who trystied with Bill Clinton for cash on at least 13 occasions. She would often get extra money for recruiting a second woman, so she and Bill, another woman, could have a threesome. On another occasion, it was 2 more women, so 3 women and Bill, and he paid each one an extra $50. He was so happy with their romp in the hay.
Now, what evidence do you have, or what's your strongest piece of evidence of Chelsea not being Bill's father and this?
Well, let's stay on Danny first.
Oh, and that's what I was going to say. And the second part of the question,
So Danny first comes to public consciousness when a activist, the Al Sharpton of Arkansas, a guy named Robert Shea McIntosh, learned that Danny Williams' mother and his aunt, Lucille Bolton, church lady, fine woman, take young Danny to the governor's mansion and demand to see Hillary. And Bolton is allowed to meet with Hillary. Hillary simply says, "Is it true?" And Bolton makes the case as to why they are certain that Danny is Bill's son. Danny is white, and this is the only white client that she had, that Bobby Ann had in the 4 years, or in the 2 years in which Clinton and she were getting it on. So, Hillary then asked what the problem was, And they said, well, the media is asking questions. And Hillary said, I'll give you the name of a private detective. He'll shut that down. And then dismissed them. The next day they came back and asked to see her again, and they were turned away by the Arkansas State Troopers. So Hillary Clinton is the one who drove Danny Williams. In fact, I learned that one of Bill Clinton's bodyguards, a state trooper, was assigned to deliver Christmas gifts to the shack.
Another question that comes up, because I've heard a lot of researchers and people talk about also who is Chelsea's father and also who's Bill's father, because his history is kind of...
they're related questions. Here's why. Bill is not the son of Billy Blythe, as he claims. Virginia Clinton's first husband, William Jefferson Clinton Sr., disappears, but Bill's real father is not Billy Blythe. Billy Blythe is actually in the service, and by counting chronologically, the people of Hope, Arkansas told me, who knew Clinton as an infant and knew his mother, told him that he could not biologically be the son of Blythe because Blythe was in Europe at the time of conception. He is the son of Dr. George Wright. Bill used to spend summers at the lake with the Wright boys as if he were a brother. Virginia Clinton Kelly Clinton was like an alley cat. The point, though, is that Wright has 3 other sons. If those 3 other sons' DNA matches the DNA of Danny Williams, the precise methodology that was used to prove that Thomas Jefferson had fathered a child with Sally Hemings, the slave, you could prove that Danny was Bill's offspring without Bill's DNA.
Okay.
And then additionally, yes, there's substantial question about Hillary and Webb Hubbell. I think Webb Hubbell is the real biological father. Bill Clinton tells his bodyguard that he learns that Hillary's pregnant by reading it in the newspaper. Hillary says in her book that a football-sized man taught her how to hold a small baby. That's Webster Hubbell she's describing. And the physical likeness is exact. I asked people to look at those photos before and after plastic surgery, compare them to photos of her biological father. Hillary and Webb were lovers. Hillary and Vince Foster were lovers. Hillary has had her flings, and hers were consensual. Bill's were something far more dangerous.
Yeah, and Vince Foster is one of the many weird deaths directly linked to the Clintons.
Although as I say in my book, I'm convinced that the Clintons did not kill Foster. Foster killed himself in his office, distraught about being psychologically destroyed by Hillary, who was breaking off their relationship and blaming him for the problems of the Clinton administration, calling him a and a hillbilly in front of the entire White House staff. He killed himself, but then Hillary ordered his body. 2 gentlemen, a fellow named Leibovitz and a fellow named Kennedy, moved the body to Fort Marcy Park. We know this because although the body was 30 yards down a muddy trail, it had rained that very morning, there was no blood or dirt on the shoes of Mr. Foster, and he had carpet fiber all over his body because he had been rolled in a carpet to remove him from the old executive office building where he shot himself. Hillary says in her own book, Hard Choices, that her immediate concern after hearing that Vince had passed was that his office would become a crime scene and he would be, it would be therefore available to federal investigators.
Yeah, and then I know James, McDouglas, a partner of, I think, the Clintons, he had a mysterious death, and then the 2 boys that I think they documented in the Meta Connection, they just possibly might have saw something, and then the autopsy came up with I guess the conclusion that it was accidental, that they smoked weed and fell asleep on train tracks, and my book is a true story, a sordid true story of sexual assault and rape, cover up, lies, strong arm tactics,
terror, money, drugs, drug use, drug trafficking, murder, threats, intimidation, greed, epic greed, corruption beyond belief. The Clintons enriching themselves, including Chelsea, the 35-year-old who yesterday savaged Bernie Sanders, using your child as a shield, as a human shield. That is really pathetic. Really pathetic. So Chelsea she is responsible legally for the $2 billion global fraud that is the Clinton Foundation. Their federal and state filings are permeated with fraud. They're going to get called on it. It's only a matter of time before some attorney general begins asking questions that you can do something about it.
And the other thing,
I mean, somebody with subpoena power needs to start looking at this beyond the IRS. Who, if any right-leaning or mainstream organization had the kind of violations in their filings and prima facie violations of law moving money around, would have had their tax status yanked by the IRS long ago. But Obama lets this criminal enterprise continue for reasons one cannot understand. And I think it's the third leg of Hillary's stool, in the sense that the stool of her candidacy is predicated on that she's an advocate for women, false, and children, false. In my book, I document that she's the one who gives the order for the fratricide, the infanticide at Waco. 18 children under 8 die in a firefight that is ordered by Hillary Clinton. This is documented by T. March Bell, the counsel to the House Committee investigating Waco, and Senator Arlen Specter, chairman of the Senate hearings looking into Waco.
Yeah, I mean, they do seem like a real-life House of Cards, Underwood.
Well, I mean, Hillary has handpicked Janet Reno. Hillary has handpicked the aforementioned Webb Hubbell, father of Chelsea, as Deputy Attorney General. He would later go to jail for corruption. Hillary's husband, Mike Medvinsky, a truly oily character. He also, his father, also a congressman, a left-wing congressman, also went to jail for corruption. So Hillary, both her father and her father-in-law have been to federal prison. It's a very interesting dynamic.
And then also another thing you talk about is why Bill Clinton, or the real reason why Bill Clinton left Oxford.
Yeah, Bill Clinton raped 19-year-old Eileen Wellstone at Oxford, a savage attack after picking her up at a pub. The State Department in Oxford essentially ejected him. It was made quiet through the political pressure of Senator William Fulbright, who had kind of shoehorned the Clinton into the Rhodes Scholar program with his political clout. Clinton then went to work for the Central Intelligence Agency, according to Cord Meyer, infiltrating anti-war, anti-Vietnam War left-wing student groups in Europe and reporting back on his brethren. This is something he has in common with George Bush, the early service to the Central Intelligence Agency and the connection to elites that allows him to make it a politician.
And the Clintons, with the history of getting private investigators or Hillary has a history of getting private investigators to harass women that Bill's been with. Have you also felt something similar to that? Have you had, any harassment for this book? I know you've told a story on some interviews about your Amazon issue with.
I think there have been some efforts by the Clintons to try to continue this book, but this is the Apple file, as Ted Cruz would say. This is what people need to know about Hillary. It's got, 586 footnotes. It's got, 385 pages of first notes. It is the definitive expose of Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton. No matter how much you think you know about them, the pardon paid off, the fact that they stole the silver and the furniture and the china, all those things. There's so much more you don't know. So I urge people to go to rogerstone.com, or they would know rogerstone.com, or go to amazon.com, or barnesandnoble.com, or ClintonsWar.com, no apostrophe, ClintonsWar.com, and all those people will can get the lowdown on the Clintons.
Yeah,
and then coming up very soon, January 26th, although you can pre-order it now if you're a patriot, Jeb and the Bush crime family. This is the inside story of Jeb's nefarious and shady past, how he's made millions out of government, including millions out of the Obama administration. How he has lived a life of privilege where he has been able to get a taxpayer-paid funded bailout for his failed real estate career. At the same time, he was able to avoid prosecution in a fraudulent import-export bank scam where he pocketed a lot of money. So it really exposes, and then it exposes the full arc of the Bush family. You know, Prescott, the senator from Connecticut, who made his big bucks on Wall Street, financing the armament of the Nazis. Yeah, owning a steel mill using slave labor from Auschwitz, a majority interest. And then of course George W. Bush, who's a far more scheming and duplicitous fellow than his goofy demeanor would indicate. You know, this kind of doofus act that he does is he really hides a very duplicitous and slippery guy.
Yeah, I've had Russ Baker on this show, who did a Family of Secrets. He's done some really good investigating.
Russ is a good man, and I highly recommend anybody who reads my book and Russ's book will have a wealth of information on the Bush Clinton crime syndicate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Prescott actually got prosecuted under the Trading with the Enemy Act because of his links to the Nazis. And
well, he actually avoided prosecution, but they seized his bank under that, hundreds of millions of dollars, and he used his high-level connections to avoid prosecution. I think you could easily say he should have gone to jail for trading with the Nazis, which was illegal at that time.
Yeah, and I've had Rick Ross on, who was a part of the Meta Connection, which was he was getting some of the drugs that was being trafficked in by, set up by Bush and Oliver North in Arkansas, which linked to the Clintons.
Yeah, Bill Clinton was presumably taking a skim from Dan Lassiter. Lassiter is in on the whole, he's the kingpin of the whole MENA thing. He's moving the stuff for the boys, the Central Intelligence Agency, and taking his cut, and Bill's taking his cut from Lassiter. Lassiter goes to jail on a minor drug offense, all they could ever really nail him on. And then he hires a really smart woman, a lawyer, Hillary Clinton, and her law partner, Vince Foster, and they convince Governor Clinton to give him a pardon.
Yeah.
And Lassiter is, he is skimming huge cocaine dollars out of the deal. When L.D. Brown, the bodyguard of Bill Clinton, snoops around the MENA airport, he tells Clinton that he pulled back a tarp on a truck and there were literally bales of cocaine. And Bill Clinton said, "That's Lassiter's deal, and your friend George Bush knows all about it."
Yeah,
L.D. Brown's book.
And people, I'm sure, have heard the name Barry Seal, who had he was mysteriously assassinated, and he was one of the drug traffickers he was working for, I believe, the CIA, FBI. He was working for...
Barry Seal was working for the DEA, and Barry Seal was a very, very accomplished pilot. He was a 300-pound kind of slob of a man. He kept all of his records of his transactions and what he was doing in the trunk of his car, or with him wherever he was. He was never without all of his records. When found, his records showed, among other things, that there was a Swiss bank account for the Secretary of Defense where Barry was making deposits. That would be Casper Weinberger, which is in this upcoming book. But interestingly enough, Barry Seal was a daredevil pilot. He was famous because he had a plane that he called the Goose, and he was able to fly very, very low without detection. And he moved millions of dollars of drugs for the cartel and for the mob and for the agency. And sometimes two of the three working together, in all truth. He was a soldier of fortune, a mercenary, taking his cut, which was enormous. and he had huge IRS problems, but he was in partnership with the government at that time. So he went to Vice President Bush, who was the head of the task force appointed to sell these weapons, and said, if you don't get the IRS off my back, I, Barry Shield, has video of Jeb and W picking up a kilo of blow at Opelika for distribution. And only a week later, Barry is dead, supposedly killed by the cartel. The 3 gunmen who killed Barry are arrested, apprehended, and arrested, and their defense becomes that they were working for a U.S. power, but they don't know who it was.
Yeah, I believe Tom Cruise is coming out with a movie about Barry Seal.
Yes, but I'm told by someone who's a consultant to that movie that it reaches no conclusion at the end. We don't know who killed Barry. Oliver North and George H.W. Bush killed Barry. He was about to spill the beans on the 2 heir apparents, W and Jeb. This is extensively in my upcoming book, Jeb and the Bush crime family.
Yeah, I mean, the other weird thing is, for example, Bush Sr. has a CIA headquarters named after him, but on record, he was only head of the CIA for a year. And, like Russ Baker and like yourself have talked about, I mean, he's been in the CIA as early as 1961. And the spooks who Jimmy Carter throws out of the agency have no place to go, and they find their home at the Bush for President headquarters. His whole campaign was riddled with, quote unquote, retired CIA guys doing dirty tricks, organizing things, getting the vote out for Poppy, rounding up all these blue bloods, and going through the tennis and golf clubs and finding the Bush Republicans who, if they aren't at the cotillion for the coming out, are not at the, they don't go to George Bush's events. Remember, when he lost, in Iowa, he said, well, my people don't, they were at cotillions that weekend. Yeah. So,
or that last game of golf.
Yeah. Another funny thing is, I remember reading when Bill Clinton was president, the Secret Service, their code name for Roger Clinton was Headache, because he was just known for being a party animal and a mess and just a pain in the ass.
But he and his brother were snorting coke and chasing underage girls together, when Bill was running for Congress and when Bill was Attorney General of the state of Arkansas. So Bill's interest in pedophilia is not limited to the strange connection between he and the pedophile sex criminal Jeffrey Epstein, who is back in the news again. But it is also, dates back to those days of freakiness.
Yeah, and I've a researcher who's been on the show quite a few times, James Corbett, a friend of mine, did a good article on former Speaker of the House, Hastert, and possibly his involved in hush money for some of his past issues when he was a teacher.
I know somebody in the government decided to take Hastert down. There's some who speculate that he was taken down not because of Denny Hastert, but as a demonstration to others with dark sexual secrets they needed to do what they're told by the military-industrial complex. I don't put that outside the realm, in all honesty.
Yeah,
Ricky, how are we doing on time here? I have
I think
stacked up, and I love talking to you because you always have great questions.
Yeah, thank you, and we've hit on a lot of things, and I'll be sure to, once your Jeb Bush is out, then I'll make sure to have you back on, and we'll talk about that.
I'd love to come talk about it again. RogerStone.com. Many thanks.
Talk to you soon.
I believe in the ripple effect.